What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is almost football season, so I figured I might as well hop back on. First episode of the season has to be with my guy Mo. I mean, there's no other way to do it. Mo, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, of course, bro. You know, it's been a minute too.
It definitely has. I think, were you on the draft show with us?
Yeah, I did the draft. I think, bro. Listen, I've barely been able to record this summer. All the shit I've had going on. So,
yep. Yeah, you've been making moves in life. I'm proud of you. I envy you a little bit.
Yeah, hey, it's not. Listen, it's not all it's cracked up to be on this side. It's nice. You feel free for once, but it ain't all it's cracked up to be. That's all I'm gonna say.
Hey. Freer than a lot of rest of us still doing this thing out here. But without further ado, we're talking NFC South today. You know, probably one of the weaker divisions, probably going into 2023 on paper. Last year, Tampa Bay won it with an 8-9 record. They made it to the playoffs, got knocked in the first round. What are your expectations of this division going in?
I probably think this is probably the second worst division in football this year. In all honesty, I mean, we know they're gonna have a playoff team because they have to. And I think, to be honest, I think this team is like light years above everybody else in that division, in the New Orleans Saints. And like I made the joke before, I'm like, you know, this is more going to be, I guess, a New Orleans Saints podcast as opposed to the NFC South. But this is a weaker division. I think for the most part, weak quarterbacks. I mean, maybe somebody pops and surprises us, but I think this is the most, even in the second weakest division, I think this is the most lopsided we have at the quarterback position. I think the gap between the best quarterback and the second best quarterback is the biggest out of any division, period.
Yeah, I think because if you look at quarterbacks, just quarterbacks alone, you have maybe Baker in Tampa. As of right now, they signed him. He's presumed to be the starter. I read on Twitter the other day he has, I think, 7 interceptions in 9 practices, so it's not looking good. I don't know off the top of my head who his backup is going to be, or QB2 is. Kyle Trask.
Yep.
So he might be able to come in and do something. Panthers just drafted Bryce Young. Do we expect him to come in and ball out first year? Maybe not. New Orleans Saints signed Derek Carr. They also go and draft Jake Haener out of Fresno State. So you got the New Orleans Bulldogs out there on the East Coast, and Atlanta Falcons, they're rolling with Desmond Ridder. So it's one of those things that you don't really know what you're going to get from these quarterbacks. One of these quarterbacks could jump out. Like you said, Mo, the Saints probably on paper the best team in the division. I like to call them the New Orleans Bulldogs because they went and got Derek Carr and then drafted Jake Haener out of Fresno State. So they're loading up on Fresno talent out there. But, you know, you don't really expect, maybe Kyle Trask does win the job. Baker Mayfield obviously has not been playing great. There's a reason he's on his third team in the last 12 months. Desmond Ridder, do we expect much from Desmond Ridder out there in Atlanta? I mean, he has weapons. He has Kyle Pitts. He has they just drafted Bijan Robinson, who people are already giving him best running back in the league title, which is insane. Do we expect anything from Desmond Ridder this year?
It's tough. I guess you would say yes, but in this draft class coming up, which is very intriguing, do you want Desmond Ridder to be semi-good? Because let's be honest, like, you have a possibility, and I'm not saying the Falcons will be like the worst team in football, but there's a possibility after a few weeks you can, all right, we 1-4. Do we really want to win a lot of games? Because you got CW coming in out of USC. Let's just be honest. He's probably going to be the number 1 draft pick no matter who has it. And so it's like, if Desmond Ridder is decent enough that you can't get Caleb Williams or Drake May, but not good enough where you feel like you got your franchise quarterback, then you're kind of in a bad spot. So, I mean, there's actually plenty of quarterback talent in this upcoming draft. So this is like a full-blown evaluation year for Desmond Ridder, and you will decide whether you'll move on from him and take a quarterback in the first round. Because if you don't get CW or Drake May, there's some other guys there's probably about 6 quarterbacks that probably end up going first round, possibly 7. I think this is an evaluation year for a lot of teams and their quarterback. But it's kind of tough. I mean, I know Desmond Ridder didn't play the greatest, his last 4 games of the season or whatever, but you just kind of got thrown in. It was just a trial period. Falcons weren't really going anywhere. You still kind of were competing for the division at that point. So there was a little bit of pressure. He's had a full-blown offseason to, run the first team reps. So it's going to be an evaluation year. I don't know what to expect from him, though. Like, I don't have like a full-blown, okay, I think he's going to be this. I think he's going to be that. But you're kind of in a weird spot if you're Atlanta, because if he's good enough where you don't get one of the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft, then you might feel like, okay, I'll wait till next year. I'm not fully sure I know there's going to be some ballers coming out, in 2025 as well. But you're kind of in a bad spot if you're in Atlanta. But you also are in a good spot because you got Drake London, you got Kyle Pitts, you have Bijan Robinson, you got Cordero Patterson. Like, you have enough weapons where I could get a fair evaluation of how good my quarterback is based on the weapons he has. He's not lacking weapons to the point. Like, if he's going to be good, he'll be good this year. If not, they'll contemplate moving on and maybe try and make some moves to move up in the draft, or also just take the 3rd or 4th best quarterback in the draft if that's also a possibility too, because you got some ballers coming out this year.
Yeah, you have, like you said, Caleb Williams, Drake May, you got Quinn Ewers possibly coming out if he has a good year at Texas. Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington and played great, especially late last season. So, yeah, they are really in that weird spot where, I feel like that's where Washington has been for the last 4 or 5 years, where especially with Taylor Heineke, just good enough to get us in the playoff race, in the playoff consideration, but not good enough to really do anything with it, but too far down the draft board to really go get that quarterback of the future.
You're too good to tank. And that's not you either want to be good and competitive and like, okay, even if I just missed the playoffs because you're like 9-8, you're okay with that. Like, I can improve the roster 1 or 2 wins in an offseason, free agency, and draft. I could get, to that 10-7, 11-6 just in an offseason and a draft if you're like 9-8 above 500. But when you're like 8-9, 7-10, you're sitting there and you're like, damn, we're not bad enough to get this top-notch quarterback that we see, this shiny gold medal over here in Caleb Williams, but we're too good to be like, you are in that weird spot. And that's a perfect example. That's where Washington's been, where like they're a fringe playoff team, but they end up on the lower side of not making it more often. I mean, they made it 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
So they made the playoffs and were competitive in that playoff game, but you knew like when Taylor Heineke played, you still were like, but this ain't it. Like, we got to the playoffs, but we know if we keep it like this is all we got. Like, this is the ceiling of we reached our pinnacle of success right here. Could get lucky, things go your way, you win a playoff game, but like there is no like Taylor Heineke is going to take us to NFC Championship one day, hopefully, or we might have a team that go to the Super Bowl. You got a lot of pieces, but the quarterback is in a weird spot. So now y'all get to see what Sam Howell's about, and I think that'll be y'all are in the same position, just better than the Falcons. Like, y'all are, say evaluation period for Sam Howell. All these quarterbacks coming in, but y'all better than the Falcons.
Yeah. All I will say, Sam Howell, prior to his senior year, had a very, very high draft grade, possibly number 1 overall. Decided to stay, lost a lot of talent. De'Ami Brown, one of them, who we drafted. So, but that's for another.
Yeah, it's
another
for your
show.
NFC East.
Yeah.
I just had to.
So, safe to say, Derek Carr, number 1 quarterback going into this season out of this division, correct? By far and away.
By far and away.
So you got Carr at 1. Who do you have at 2?
Baker. And the reason why I have Baker is because I think at the end of the season, Bryce Young will be the second best quarterback in this division. But I'm not giving a guy I have not seen play a snap of NFL football. I don't care what I'm hearing in training camp. I'm not giving a rookie. I don't respect rookies, but I'm not giving them this high grade. And he's the 20th best quarterback in football, and he's never played. So I'm going to give it to Baker. Baker's the second best quarterback in And
who do you have at 3?
Okay, this is where I'm gonna break a little bit. I'm going Bryce Young over Desmond Ridder.
Okay.
But Desmond Ridder's only played 4 or 5 NFL games. He's only going into his second year, and I think Bryce Young this year, I think he will be better than Desmond Ridder. And this isn't a season bet that we're talking about, so it's Bryce Young, and then so obviously I have Desmond Ridder at 4.
Okay. Oh yeah, because Bryce Young and Desmond Ridder, basically, you look at it, both rookies. Yeah. So I'm okay with that. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think I hope Bryce Young does well.
Is it crazy to say the Saints might have the 2 best quarterbacks in the division? In Derek Carr and Jameis, bro? Like, I would throw Jameis over Baker if I was to really do it, but I'm just going to rank the starting quarterbacks. But I'd take Jameis over Baker and Ridder. I would over Young going into the season just because I want to see what Young can be, but I would rank him over Young just for the fact he's a simple vet. He's a veteran. He can win you a few games.
Yeah. And I honestly forgot Jameis Winston was with them.
Yeah. So they might have the 2 best quarterbacks.
They probably do have the 2 best quarterbacks in the division. That's crazy. So for each team, we all know there's a quarterback-driven league. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a team. You're not winning games. So far, we think only one of these teams has a true quarterback as of right now. For each team, who do you have as the most important non-quarterback? And we'll start with the Saints.
Michael Thomas. I think
Assuming Michael Thomas plays.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going with that. Is like we saw the Saints offense last year, right? The first 2 games, Michael Thomas had 4 touchdowns. He had like 50 yards in the first game, 100 yards in the second game. He looked healthy. He looked ready to go. And we know like those weapons, adding Michael Thomas, and we were starting to see what Chris Olave would be in the NFL. Like, so I think if Michael Thomas is healthy and ready to go, I think he's going to be a big piece. I mean, I know it's been some years, but the last time we seen Michael Thomas healthy, he was the best wide receiver in football. He broke the reception record, still holds it. He had like 1,800 yards, 149 catches, double-digit touchdowns. Like, we just haven't seen him healthy since then, and he is getting up there in age. I think he's 29. I think he turns 30 at some point during the season. So I feel like we only have maybe 2 to 3 years of production left of him if he stays healthy. But I think Michael Thomas is I think he's the most important probably piece to any of these teams on non-quarterbacks. But yeah, if Michael Thomas is healthy and ready to go, and you got Derek Carr, that offense could be pretty lethal. They have the potential to be pretty lethal. Alvin Kamara only got suspended 3 games, so you get out of there 2-1, get Kamara back ready to go, healthy. It's good. As much I know he's suspended for the wrong reasons, but to have a running back be able to play 3 less games in a season means he'll be fairly healthy later on. So I think you pan out well with him actually getting suspended because he's not going to play a full 17.
Yep. Michael Thomas is 30 years old.
He's 30. I knew he was 29. He's about to turn 30 or is 30.
All right. We'll head over to Tampa Bay. Most important non-quarterback for Tampa Bay.
This one's tough. I'm gonna really go Mike Evans though, and y'all know I be hating on Mike Evans. I really
do.
But he works like a tight end in a sense. He's that receiver who I look at him like I look at tight ends. Like he's your safety net. If nobody's open, throw it up to Mike Evans. He probably goes and gets it. So I feel like that's going to be very important for Baker Mayfield being back there throwing the ball, or Kyle Trask later in the season if Baker ends up playing bad and they move on, to see if Kyle Trask is a guy before they start evaluating whether they're going to take a quarterback in this draft. I think they're another team that's going to be in that position. So I think, for him being a safety valve, and I know that's 2 teams I've taken where I've taken wide receiver, but I think, with as elite as Michael Thomas can be, and then with Mike Evans being that safety valve, I think he's going to hold very important to Baker Mayfield. And I really think Mike Evans has the possibility for being that and having a below average quarterback. He actually could be primed for like a really big year, because when you're not that good, you're going to go to the guy that's going to catch the ball almost guaranteed. So I think Mike Evans might actually have a big year, and then everybody's going to at me in the chat and be like, oh, you can't hate on him now. But then I could go back and be like, well, go check Football and Chill. I gave him his respect. I said he's the most important player on this team that's not named Baker Mayfield. So, yeah, I think it's Mike Evans.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that. It's gonna be a weird season for Tampa Bay because again,
Their
Baker's
roster is
Baker.
good. They got a
They do
good
have
roster. They just
yep.
don't have a quarterback.
And like I said, if you ain't got a quarterback, you ain't got a team. You're not winning games. Not
Yeah,
winning a lot of games.
a lot of games. Yeah.
And Baker, as much as I was a fan of Baker coming into the NFL, he just obviously hasn't lived up to any of the hype that any of his supporters gave him, even the hype that he gave himself. And I do see Kyle Trask starting at some point in this season for Tampa Bay. So head over to Atlanta. They have shit. You can plethora of non-quarterback X factors. Who's yours?
I'm gonna do it.
Do it.
Bijan Robinson.
I knew you were going to.
And here's why, because you don't have that good of you don't know if your quarterback's that good. You have a decent roster where you're gonna be in some games, but what you are gonna do, you took a running back in the first round. So what you're guaranteed to do is if all else fails, I'm gonna turn around and hand that ball off to Bijan Robinson. Maybe he's great. Maybe after this year, we do think he's the best running back in the league. I don't think so. I stick to that on rookies. I don't put these expectations. They're the best at anything. Even after their rookie season, I got to see it a couple years because these veterans have been doing it for so long that you've gotten consistent production. But I think it's Bijan Robinson only because the Falcons drafted him in the first round for a reason. They plan on using him. And when you draft a running back that high, it's almost because in today's NFL in these past few years is because you plan on using him as a workhorse and you're going to run him down and then you're not going to pay him when it's time to pay him, but you're going to get elite production out of him for the next 4 years. And I think it starts with this year. Like you didn't take him first round. You're about to prove that, hey, people thought it might've been the dumbest draft pick just because taking a running back so high, you took him in top 10. We didn't think we'd see a running back in the top 10, even though his grade was like, if we were going to see one, it would be Bijan. But we didn't think we were going to see a running back in the top 10.
Right.
You took him at number eight, right? I think he was 8 or 9. I think 8.
I think 8.
Yeah, they took him at number 8. You're going to have to use him to justify taking a running back at number 8. So that's why I think he's going to be important, just because if Desmond Ridder starts to falter, I don't even know who their backup quarterback is. You're just going to hand the ball off. And you're going to use him in the screen game. He's going to be what Mike Evans is to Baker Mayfield. He's going to be your safety valve. I can always hand him the ball. If nobody's open, I could throw it to him in the flat and let his athleticism and let him make big plays. So Bijan's going to work like that for Atlanta.
Yeah, same. Drafting a running back that high, the expectation is to use them, use and abuse them like every other running back in this league. The cliche has been said for years: a quarterback's best friend is a good running back. Especially in this day and age in the NFL, in such a pass-happy league. Bijan Robinson is a catching running back. He's a receiver type of running back and can be, and that's going to help out Desmond Ridder a lot. Going to help him out a lot going into the season. So moving up to Carolina, Bryce Young, rookie quarterback. The roster isn't great. I don't think we expect much from that team as a whole. I do think they're going to have, best case scenario, a top 10 draft pick, probably top 5, top 3 maybe. Who do you have as their most important non-quarterback player?
This one's tough because, like you said, they don't really have a lot of they don't have a lot of elite talent, but I'm gonna go Brian Burns. And it's just because we know he's a very, I won't say elite, but he's a very, very good pass rusher, edge rusher / linebacker. He's like that hybrid, the Chase Young. All these defensive ends can also play outside linebacker in a 3-4, the Michael Parsons and all that. So I think Burns is going to be that type of guy, but I think, he's been that type of guy, but I think he's the most important just because, your offense, you got Adam Thielen, you got Chark, you have Terrace Marshall. You got some decent weapons. You could do some. You didn't give your rookie quarterback absolutely nothing. But I think when it comes down to it, if you don't have elite talent on the offensive side, what's the most important position outside of quarterback? You either got a quarterback or you got a guy that could go get the quarterback.
Yep.
So I think Burns is going to be that guy. So I would say Brian Burns is probably the most important piece for this team because he could make life on an offensive line and life on the opposing quarterback hell, where maybe he make just enough plays. If Bryce Young is good enough, he keep you in games, and then he turn the tides, getting a sack on third down, or getting a fumble, whatever it may be. I think Burns is the most, because a lot of times if it ain't your quarterback, it's the guy who can go get him. And I think for this instance, having a young quarterback, the guy you're going to value the most without having elite weapons is the guy that could go get the quarterback. And so I think that's Brian Burns.
I'm looking at, and I'm going to go the same route we went with Atlanta. I'm looking at the running back room as a whole, but more importantly, more specifically, Miles Sanders. Getting that signing from Philadelphia, overpaying him a little bit, in my opinion, yes. A lot of people will probably say the same thing. A lot of people will defend it, most likely.
You do that when you're a bad team and got a lot of cap space. You end up overpaying for players because you got a lot of cap space and you're bad.
Yeah. But they do have a solid running back room as a whole. They have, like I said, Miles Sanders. They got Chuba Hubbard still, Spencer Brown, Raheem Blackshear, and Cam Peoples. So they have a lot of running backs they can use. It's not going to be completely solely on Miles Sanders. It's not a terrible running back room. But Miles Sanders has that winning pedigree, just came off a Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs. So he has that. He knows what it takes to win. And I think he'll be able to be like a decent mentor to Bryce Young. You also have to look at the rest of the quarterback room. They have Sam Darnold there as well. I think, right? Did they end up signing? Or am I tripping? No, that's San Francisco.
Yeah, he went to San Fran.
He was. Who's their other quarterback then? They don't have another quarterback. Luke Luton.
Who is that?
Oh, I'm thinking of Andy Dalton.
Yeah, they got Andy Dalton. Good vet. That's a solid vet to have for Bryce Young. Bryce Young's gonna start. It seems like he's gonna be QB1. Andy Dalton's been in a lot of situations. He's been to the playoffs. He's won some games. He's played for one of the biggest brands in football in Dallas. So he's been there where the pressure's on, when he's had to step in and the pressure's on. He's been in a lot of situations where at the very least, it's good when you draft a rookie quarterback that you think is your franchise quarterback for the future. Having Andy Dalton, I think that's a perfect guy to have mentor him and do that, as long as Andy Dalton feels like he's up to it. Because sometimes guys like Andy Dalton, they feel like, I'm one of the 32 best quarterbacks I could be starting, but he took the Panthers job knowing, he signed with Carolina, knowing they had the number 1 pick, knowing they was going to draft a quarterback. So I think he took it to get some money and be a mentor. And if Bryce Young doesn't, it was a possibility of if Bryce Young doesn't impress them, or we decide to ease him into the role, Andy Dalton will start. But he knew what he was signing up for, and so I think he'll be the perfect mentor.
Yeah, I like that. I like that signing a lot going into it. So, moving on, prediction time. Like we said, one of the worst. I said the worst division. You said second worst. Who's going to be the worst division this year? If this division, the AFC South?
Yeah. You got one playoff team in both divisions, I think. And then what? I mean, I don't think the Titans are going to be that good. I don't expect much for Houston. And who else in the AFC?
The Colts.
And the Colts finna be trash. They're probably evenly just as bad.
Okay.
They're 1 and 2, however you want to flip it.
I give 1 to the NFC South because I could see the Saints winning that division with an 8-9 record. I still think Jacksonville will have a winning record. I think
Jacksonville is the playoff team in that division. I don't think either team has 2 playoff teams, unless somebody surprised us. Somebody would have to break out this year.
So, Falcons, Saints, Panthers, and Bucks. Saints number 1. That's the playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
Quick
they
prediction.
Win the division.
How many wins?
10-7. They go 10-7.
10-7.
Bro, they have a good team and they have a good quarterback. I believe Derek Carr is good. He's not very good. He's not great. He's good. He's in that 12 to 16 range. I think he's above average. He can win you some games. If you have Michael Thomas come back healthy, you got weapons. You got Chris Olave. You got Alvin Kamara at running back. You got a very good defense. This is the last probably year or 2 of having a very good defense, but they got players all over the field. You might not trust the coach. We'll see. But I mean, think about it. 6 of your games are against the Bucks, the Panthers, and the Falcons. Like that's 6 games right there. I don't know if they go 6-0, even if they go 5-1 in their division. Like you're talking about, there's 5 wins right there. And then I haven't looked at their full blown schedule, but if they can go 5-1 in the division, which I think they might, they can find 5 wins. Like they're good enough. They're a 5-win team outside of their division, and then you're talking about going 5-1 in their division. So I think 10-7.
That's actually not
is a lot.
They're over under is 9.5 for wins this season. So you're not.
I think they're over by half. I got 10-7.
So maybe I'm not giving them as much credit as they deserve. So doing Saints 1, who's finishing second?
Oh, I'm gonna say the Bucks, just because I don't believe in their quarterback, but at the same time, they do have a good roster. Like they got a pretty decent offense. They got a decent offensive line. They got Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. They got some players on defense. They got Devin White. They got Winfield Jr. They got Tristan Wirfs on the offensive line. Like they got enough players. You might not believe in another situation. You might not believe in the coach. And they did go 8-9 with Tom Brady. So you would think they probably lose a couple wins, but I think the NFC is fairly weak this year. When you really think about it, I think the NFC was a lot stronger last year. Aaron Rodgers went, to the other conference. You got some other teams here. I think the Bucks go 7-10. I think they're second at 7-10 though. They'll be close. They'll be in the playoff hunt at about week 12, 13, because the division, they'll probably be within a game or two where they have a realistic chance, and then they'll probably drop a couple and be out, and they'll go like 7-10. 6-11 at the worst. They got too good of a team to say like, oh yeah, they're just going to be in the Caleb Williams hunt. Unless they put Kyle Trask in early. Now that changes everything. But if they rock with Baker for most of the season, or he's good enough where they have a decent enough quarterback to win some games, I think they go 7-10.
They're over under 6-5, so right on par with where they're expecting.
A lot of overs. I need to take one of these teams to be absolutely terrible.
But you got two more options. Who do you have finishing third?
The Panthers. I think the Panthers. They're not that great. They got some players. This is a growing year for them. This is an experiment year for them. They drafted a quarterback number 1. You're going to start him. You're going to play him. You're going to let him grow. You're going to go through growing pains. I think they win 5 games, 6 at the max. If they absolutely got the best out of Bryce Young, they go 7-10. But I'm gonna say they go 5-12.
5-12.
Yeah, 5-12. I think they go 5-12, 6-11, somewhere in that range. This is a growing year, but then you're going to learn what you have, and then you're going to set, like, next year is going to be the year we build off of Bryce Young. We surround him with weapons. We want to see what type of guy he is first and see if, okay, we got our guy, we're going to build around him. So they win 5 or 6 games at the max.
They're over under 7.5. A lot of people forget, I personally forgot until I just read it. Frank Wright is now their head coach. He was able to do some things in Indianapolis, given he did that with a quarterback. So see what he's able to do with that team. So you have Atlanta finishing last. Give us your thoughts and win totals for them.
Bro, I don't think they're that good. Like, they got some weapons to see if Desmond Ritter's that guy. I don't see them winning more than 5 games. They win 5 at the max. They go 5-12, but I think you start to – this is an evaluation to see, should we tank? And if Desmond Ritter's bad, they continue to roll with him and be in those Caleb Williams, Drake May sweepstakes. I think this is why Desmond Ridder is the starting quarterback. I think this is why they didn't keep Marcus Mariota. They didn't go get a Jameis Winston, because they want to see, like, okay, the guy that we drafted last year, is he it, or do we go for Caleb Williams? Like, essentially, it's tank for Caleb this year. Every few years, we have a quarterback you tank for, like, that we go into the season. Shoot, it was Tua, back in Bama. It was like tank for Tua was a thing. Yep. I think tank for Caleb is a thing this year. And I think Atlanta could put themselves in that predicament. So I don't really see them winning more than 5 games. Sorry, Jelani, that I'm kind of crapping on your team like that, but this is a relatively bad team, but good enough young pieces to build off of. And if I was able to get Caleb Williams, I'd be like, okay, now I got something. I got a young corner, AJ Terrell. I got Drake London, Kyle Pitts. I got Bijan Robinson. Like, they have a team set up perfectly to just be like, let's punt this season, win one game, and go get Caleb Williams, to be honest. And it'd be the perfect scenario for Caleb Williams to come into.
Yeah, it's so how long would you give Desmond Ridder to show whether he can play or not?
Well, if he's absolutely bad, then I give him the whole season so I can lose a bunch of games.
Okay.
If he's decent, then I just rock with decent and figure out nobody's going to be able, more than likely, unless one of these teams who have their quarterback, he gets hurt and they just happen to be the worst team in the NFL. Nobody's trading up for number one. Like, you are not getting the number one spot from anybody because that's passing on Caleb Williams to trade back. So you have to be the worst team in football in order to get him. So if he's absolutely terrible, then you just keep rocking with him and keep losing games. If he's decent, you have to keep rocking with him. I don't see a world where Desmond Ridder gets benched, because if he's bad, then continue to let him be bad and move on from him. He's your backup quarterback for Caleb Williams after that. Maybe it's just, he folded under pressure. He gets to be where he's a decent backup later on in his career. But I don't see why you move on from Desmond Ridder, because if he's good, then okay, we might have something to work with. And if he's bad, okay, we just lose a bunch of games and get Caleb Williams next year.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, because you can't, this isn't a draft where you can pass. Because Bryce Young, given he was one of the top quarterbacks in the league, you obviously have the questions about his size, his height, all that, which we've been hearing about smaller quarterbacks for the last few years, which I feel like is being validated a little bit more as of recent, because you have Baker Mayfield, who has been struggling on his third team in the last 12 months. You have Kyler Murray, who we have pretty much from injuries and kind of has been written off, at least by me. I've never been a believer in Kyler Murray.
He gets banged up every year. And now he finally ended up getting hurt, which was actually a freak. Like, it was just him cutting and he tears his ACL. It wasn't from contact, but still, like, he's been banged up towards the end of the year. Like, but you look at small quarterbacks and you're like, okay, it's the Russell Wilson or Drew Brees kind of thing. And think about the gap from when Drew Brees came in the league and then Russell Wilson. And think about that gap of small quarterbacks that didn't pan out in between them, but you hold on to like the two guys. And then you have, like, I guess in between, the Michael Vick at the end of the day, but Michael Vick was so elusive, it didn't matter.
He was just a freak athlete.
But for guys to be 6 foot and under and really come in and have these star expectations, it's kind of unfair, because it doesn't, like, if you're going to be if we're comparing him to Drew Brees, then we're like, we just drafted a future Hall of Famer.
Right.
If not, there isn't really an in-between. It's either like, this guy's going to be a future Hall of Famer, a la Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, or this guy's just going to be bad and fade off just like every other 6 foot and under quarterback.
Yep. So it's going to be interesting to see with these quarterbacks going in. Mo, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate your time. Looking forward to a lot more shows throughout the NFL
football season coming, baby.
I can't wait.
Sunday overreaction. Boy, I can't. I've been like, you know what? I'm glad I took a hiatus this summer, get myself adjusted, rejuvenated. Because, boy, I was just thinking, I'm like, dang, I'm going to have a show Saturday morning. We gonna get it on Monday. Everybody else going to have their shows. Football season is the busiest time for me, especially because all the football guys are active. And then come like October, all the basketball guys get active, and you just got shows every day. That's when the network is crazy. You get to be like, all right, I might need to skip out on somebody's show just because I've done one every day the past 2 weeks.
Exactly. And that's like you said, that hiatus, I haven't done a show other than the draft show. My last show was the night of the Super Bowl. We did the recap. That was my last real show. And it's been nice. Been spending time with family, focusing on them a little bit. Wife is on sea duty now, and she's on duty today. So, she about to relearn what it's like. Good for her. It's been nice
to take that break though, only because I know football season. Like, it's August now. Like, college football about to start, NFL season. I mean, the Hall of Fame game is what it is, but like, preseason starts this week. Like, I might be going to the Cowboys game on Saturday. Like, it's going to be Like, it's going to feel real this week. Come Thursday, I don't know who plays, but Thursday when we actually get to see, there's going to be some starters playing and everything. We're going to see starters take the field for the first time, even though they won't play that long, a series or two. Like, it's football season now, and we get more than we're going to see some action where we get more than just training camp to talk about.
Right, and it's exciting. So once again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you guys for watching, listening, however you watch or listen, however you took this in. We hope to see you again tomorrow. I'll be on with my boy Ken, my favorite Canadian, talking AFC East, I believe. I forgot which one I assigned him to. I should probably know who I'm doing shows with. Ken is the AFC North. So catch that tomorrow, probably around the same time. Once again, thank you guys for showing up.